Industry pickup. That's right. We have made it into one of the famous and heralded industry leagues filled with many fantasy basketball analysts. How's it going, guys? My name is Andrew. Welcome to the Angle Fantasy Basketball Podcast. If you want to check out all of our content, make sure to visit our website, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. Make sure to follow us on Twitter as well at AngleFantasyBB. So today we are here to talk about our industry pickup team. So this is our first year participating in industry pickup. Shout out to Josh Lloyd, shout out to B-Dub, shout out to Alex Rickling for letting us into the league, as well as commissioning and organizing all three of the industry pickup leagues. So for us, we got into the auction league. So it is a 12-team league. There is 14-man rosters, so it's a little bit bigger than the traditional 12-man team setting. And we of course start off the auction with the standard $200 budget. So I of course had a very important partner in the auction process. Braxton, how are you doing today, dude? Are you ready to talk about our team?
Excellent. And I'm glad I'm finally able to bring you over to the dark side with an auction draft. Once you do an auction, it's really tough to go back to Snake. So
Honestly, you are, because like the exact same thing was said to me with like dynasty salary leagues. You know, people pitch the idea to go into a salary league. I'm like, I don't feel like doing math. I don't want to do math, like do that type of stuff. But now that I'm in it, it's the only thing that I want to do. And then especially in the last 2 years of redraft, not getting a great pick. I was pick 9 this year. Picking outside of the top 8 in redraft this year sucks, I will say. So I didn't get to do exactly what I wanted to do. Whereas with our team, we got to do exactly what we wanted to do. So we can talk about the wingspan that's in the background of your virtual background today, which belongs to Victor Wembanyama. So I have to give you credit here, because going into the auction draft, you said we are not going to leave this draft without one of Victor Wembanyama or Nikola Jokic. So I was fully on board with that plan. I've never owned either in a redraft setting, so I was really excited to do that, especially for Wemby. But as we started to get closer, you said, hey, why don't we actually try to get both of them? So this is kind of following along with a strategy you like to do with auctions. So just tell us about this idea of us targeting both Wemby and Jokic, who we ended up getting both of them at a pretty decent price.
yeah, not to give too much away here about my personal strategy, because I play in a lot of leagues with some people, but I'm all about aggression when it comes to auction. And I mean, you really can't get more aggressive than this with the top two best players. Jokic is somebody that I've had probably 4 years in a row in the redraft leagues that I play in, just because, I play in auction leagues and I go in and I'm like, oh, I want the best player. Why wouldn't you want the best player? And, going in an auction league, some of these, there's, I guess the alternative strategy would be to wait and try and pinpoint some of these deals that happen after a lot of money gets spent. But the problem with that, and that's kind of what happened in this league, is if everybody's doing that, or if there's a lot of people doing that, there really isn't that many deals once you get past a certain point, right? So we saw Wemby go for what, Andrew, $67, and then Jokic
That's right.
go for
That's what we got him for.
$68 immediately afterwards. And this was, I think, within the first 5 picks of the draft. We secured Wemby and an insane price. I mean, we were willing up to, you and I had talked about definitely up to $80. Me personally, I may have gone up to $100 for Wembanyama. I don't know if, in the moment, if I was going to be able to convince you of that or not. But luckily, we didn't have to. It capped out at $67, which is low for the number one overall player in a normal year. And when I say normal year, Wembanyama is probably the most hyped number one overall asset in a while, right? Last year is, okay, is he going to be good enough to be the number one overall asset? This year he is 100% the number one overall asset. And what's even more interesting is that he went for less than Jokic did. So being able to get both those players for under $70 in a $200 auction budget in a 12-team league, I think is incredible value. And it just is a result of people being passive and kind of waiting on those deals, which didn't ever really materialize. The way this draft kind of went, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, is the high-end guys really did not go for that much at all. Josh Lloyd got Luka Doncic for $54. I mean, that's ridiculous. Sometimes you see him going up to upwards of $65, $70, depending on the league you're in. So I really think we got away with one here. And what happened is some of those lower end players that normally you get for maybe $3 or $4 really got inflated to $9 or $10. And it really kind of, I think, threw off the people who did that wait and see strategy. So yeah, just to summarize, aggression, 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 and that's what we did.
Especially for this being our first year in industry pickup too, I was all for the strategy of let's be aggressive, let's try to make some noise here. So landing Jokic and Victor is definitely a pretty good way to be able to do that. So we got two cheat codes on this team, and I think people also didn't realize that it was us bidding on Jokic too, because we got Wemby first. And I'm not sure if people realized it was also us going for Jokic, and they might have tried to bid his number up a little bit more if they did realize that. So that was something else that we got away with. So obviously we need more players than just Victor Wembanyama and Nikola Jokic. So we were pretty happy about the additional guys that we got too. So we're going to go ahead and bring it over to our team here and talk about some of the other additions that we made. All right, so here is our full team here. Obviously, we're taking advantage of Wemby having the red flag, and we're able to manufacture a stream for Jaden McDaniels today. So we're still not for sure if we're going to keep him moving forward or not. But everybody else we drafted, we're very happy about this one. So one thing I will note, and it's something that you and I were discovering today, is we were aware that this was a games cap league, but we weren't sure exactly how that was going to work. And basically how that does work is for the 10 starting slots that you see on the screen here, you can only start a player in each of those slots 4 times maximum per week. So it's a 40-game cap limit league, which also gives you the ability to get some stash guys because they're not going to make it to your lineup a lot. So that's what we went with like Noah Clowney at the end of the draft, as well as Jalen Smith too. But what I'm finding myself getting pretty obsessed with building our lineup and determining, okay, who's playing in this slot, who's playing in this slot. We need to balance it out, make sure we not go over the game cap. It went to the point today where Braxton and I were literally on the phone call with each other, making sure we get our first week scheduled out properly. So it's very fun. Like it brings me to that vibe of like when you're in a playoff situation where you're really thinking hard about who you want to stream, who you want to start. All these types of decisions get magnified. Kind of seems like we're going to treat this as a playoff type scenario, just basically on a week by week basis. So how the team ended up, it ended up with basically like we weren't necessarily going for this, but it ended up where we don't really have a hard punt in any category. We have basically very strong top, like towards the top of the league output in field goal percentage, rebounds, assists, and blocks. And we set ourselves up to be able to stream for things like 3-pointers, points, and steals, which are obviously 3 of the easier categories that we can find on the wire. So what makes me happy and excited about this team is we can kind of mold this team on a week-to-week basis based on the strengths of the opponent that we're playing. So for example, I won't give too much away, but we're playing Kingy this week, who is a very heavy big man build. He's, obviously this is one of those teams we're probably not going to catch in blocks. Even though we do have Victor Wembanyama, the rest of our block sources is kind of like a blocks by committee type of thing. So we are strategizing to attack him in some different categories instead, as opposed to, I don't think we're going to make it, catch him in blocks. So it's just that kind of concept that's really fun. And I look forward to you and I planning this a lot throughout the season, Braxton.
Yeah, and you mentioned the blocks by committee type thing. I've talked in the past about surrounding Wembanyama with other block sources and making sure that, he's not the only person that can get blocks on your team. And while, looking at this team here, there isn't really any concrete block sources. We do have a few guys who will be able to get blocks. And that was intentional in the fact that we wanted to make sure we were strong enough in guard stats to be able to compete with the other teams. So if we loaded up on heavy blocks guys, especially in a games cap league where it's 4 games per slot, right? So if you get a bunch of centers, you're not gonna be able to play all of them in every game that they have that week because you're gonna use up all your center slots and your flex slots on the centers. So really went for the balanced build, like you said, Andrew. Something that also was kind of unintentional and seems to be a nice surprise is that we seem to be pretty competitive in turnovers, even with Jokic and Wembanyama on the team. Meanwhile, still being good in assists, which I think is a really interesting combination. And I think to win very competitive leagues like this, you have to have a really interesting combination or build on your team to be able to be successful. You also see there Jaden McDaniels, that's our stream for the first day there. And then some other flyer type guys that you may not normally see rostered in a standard league, such as Lonzo Ball, Noah Clowney, and Jalen Smith. one, that kind of plays into the games cap a little bit, right? Where we don't have to play them every game every week, or we wouldn't be losing, I guess, production from somebody who's a little bit more productive early in the season, just because we wouldn't be able to utilize all of those games anyway. But also with and I don't want to call it stars and scrubs because we don't have the other players are not scrubs on this team. But when you have the two high end guys like Jokic and Wembanyama, you want to get some high upside guys who can break out and beat ADP, or I guess in this scenario would be average or the dollar value for the auction. So, Jalen Smith, Noah Clowney, Lonzo Ball, who was a waiver pickup, Pajemski is another one. They have a lot of potential to beat the dollar value that we got them at, which I believe was, I don't know, $2 for each, then maybe four for Pajemski at the end there. So just trying to get value where we can. When you have the two upside or the two high end guys like that, you're not really looking for floor, you're looking for ceiling. And it's a really risky build, but I think it can pay off if you hit.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because right now we are blocks by committee with, Naz Reid, Jokic, Jonas Valanciunas, in support of Victor Wembanyama, who's obviously a massive source of blocks. But, it's not true that he's going to win you blocks on his own. There's going to be some teams out there that stack in an insane amount of blocks. They'll get, Miles Turner and Nick Claxton and other block sources. That's totally something that's going to happen. So we have the blocks by committee approach right now, but it could be totally possible come January, February onwards that we're going to get significant block contributions from a Noah Clowney and or a Jalen Smith. I think Jalen Smith's going to break out a little bit earlier than we expect, maybe after the first couple months, but Noah Clowney's maybe someone that we're looking at more as like a post All-Star break is going to be a staple within our lineup. So I'm pretty excited about this one. But one thing that I wanted to do after getting Jokic and Wemby is that I wanted to have a true big three. So I, of course, give you credit for the idea of going for those big two cheat codes that we got with Jokic and Wemby. But one thing that I said from the beginning of the draft, before we were really past like the first 6 or so picks, was I had a strong feeling that there would not be a high bid amount on Ja Morant. And we got away with one. We only spent $22 on Ja Morant. There was plenty of guards that were not better than him that went for a little bit more of an expensive price than he did. So we were able to add a third star along with Jokic and Wemby. And he's somebody who complements their stats as well. He's got a high field goal percentage, great assists, great scoring. Very, very excited about Ja Morant and the price that we got him at. And then we can move on to our fourth supporting star, who we got at an even better deal, which is Austin Reaves. So Reaves is very good pretty much across the board in 9 categories. So he highly contributes to the type of build we were going for. And then that positional versatility, point guard, shooting guard, and small forward. In this type of games cap situation where it goes by each of the 10 positions that are on here, someone with that positional flexibility is going to be a huge help. So only $9 for a easy top 100 producer like Austin Reaves is something that we are very excited about. And then we got some guys on the outskirts of the top 100 that we're maybe taking some bets on that can probably find their way into the top 100. Like, for example, I would not be shocked if Tyus Jones puts up a top 100 season. I would not be shocked if Jonas Valanciunas puts up a top 100 season. I know the Wizards are a bit of a mess, so maybe not as confident in that one. But the ones I am confident in are Tyus Jones, Naz Reid. We spent $7 on Naz Reid, which might be a little bit for some people, but I would spend $7 on Naz Reid any day of the week. That's one of my absolute favorite breakout candidates. It's a lot easier to win a position battle against Julius Randle than it is against Karl Anthony Towns. So very, very excited about that one. We got Andrew Nembhard on his new contract. Josh Hart, who started for us today, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. You and I, we love that. That's great for us. So another thing that was crucial too, how do you feel about that Marcus Smart handcuff? It wasn't really something that we paid attention to when we got him. We just wanted his steals and his assists. But after we were on the phone talking about our planning strategy for our lineups, for this week and obviously moving forward, we came to the realization that, holy shit, we have the handcuff for Ja Morant. We've got Marcus Smart.
Yeah, and like you said, it wasn't intentional, but I think it could be really crucial down the stretch, especially if Ja Morant gets banged up. Obviously, we don't have the replacement for Jokic at this point, or Wembanyama, which there isn't really a one-to-one for either of those guys, but having somebody who can kind of contribute normally, as well as maybe take on an expanded role when our third star goes down in Ja Morant, I think is so huge. And just real quick on the point of Valanciunas, obviously the Wizards are not going to be competitive down the stretch, but something else we did factor in is that this league ends a week earlier than normal standard league. Usually a lot of leagues you see end in the last week of March. This league ends a week earlier, so that's something to factor in as well when it comes to the playoffs and the availability of somebody like Giannis.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams, especially ones that are going to tank early on in the season, at least all the way through December, they play all their veterans, all their guys that are on high wages. They all get pretty much all the minutes that they can. So it's really more January, February onwards that these guys, such as like a Noah Clowney, such as for the Wizards, for example, above Carrington and Keyshawn George, you'll see those minutes really spike up come February. But obviously, if you want your team to be participating in March, you need to be good enough to get there in the first place. So these types of regular season contributors like Jonas, who might potentially fall off a little bit at the second half of the season, that's okay with us. Number one, because we have sleepers like Noah Clowney, and number two, because Jonas is going to put up great stats for us while he is playing. Great field goal, great free throw percentage, points and rebounds. We need all those things. And then, of course, if he's able to chip in any blocks for us, we love that as well, too. So there is some guys who are solid floor guys like Josh Hart, like Andrew Nemhard. We know exactly what they're going to do. Austin Reeves, we know exactly what he's going to do. And then some upside plays with, of course, Naz Reid being the biggest one. Brandon Pajemski being, I mean, he had a lot of hype as an upside play at the beginning of the season, but I know Kerr's been really toying with his rotations a lot, which may have soured some people on Pajemski a little bit too. But if he's able to have a more of an increased role, like some people think he will, then that'll be huge for us as well too. And then, of course, Tyus Jones in Phoenix. How are you feeling about Jones this year? I mean, like you talked about, we have high assists with low turnovers, and obviously one of the best assist to turnover ratio guards in the league right now, and in the league for a long time, is Tyus Jones. So how are you feeling about him for this year?
Yeah, all signs are pointing to the Suns wanting to start Tyus Jones, that Grayson Allen's going to come off the bench. I mean, he said, I guess he's been saying for years now that he wants to start. I mean, he's good enough for it. And yeah, just on the point with the assist to turnover ratio, I mean, something that I think is really unique about this build is that assist to turnover ratio. We've got the out of position assists from Jokic and then the splash from Wemby as well. And then being able to supplement that with guys who get the assists without necessarily racking up turnovers, I think is so huge. And I guess it kind of plays into the field goal percentage as well, right? I mean, these guys are not. We don't really have any chuckers on our team besides Marcus Smart, and we have enough to offset him. So I think all around it's pretty unique. And Tyus Jones, I think, is a big part of that. We got him for $4. I think he's when we look back on this team and if we're able to achieve any success with it, I think he's going to be a major part of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then, of course, we'll look to supplement any needed stats on a weekly basis from the waiver wire too. So we got plenty of flexibility to work with that in that regard. Obviously, because basically we have 4-man benches in this team, but realistically on a week-to-week basis, you'll probably only be able to get 2 of those guys into the rotation. So it's totally fine to have maybe a couple of stashes on the end of your bench, like in our case, Noah Clowney and Lonzo Ball. We're trying to see how that works out because one guy we wanted to go for in the draft was Jalen Suggs, and we were priced out of that basically right away. The moment he was nominated, we put in our like a $2 bid, and then it shot way up to I don't remember what he ended up going for, but I think it was over $10. And that was out of our price range. But we got Lonzo on the wire, and if it gets to the point where the minutes restriction lifts a little bit towards the end of the year, then basically we got kind of the same thing as Jalen Suggs, but for free. So that would work out really well for us if he does hit. But of course, in the beginning of the year, there's going to be sitting back-to-backs, potential probable tags. So he's going to get that red flag, and we're going to be able to toy with that in regards to the injury reserve spot and streaming people into the spot Lonzo normally would have occupied. So that way we get to still have a consistent streaming source without dropping somebody that could potentially put up some very useful stats for us as well too. So this is the team. Obviously, to Josh Lloyd's point, because he did a full, he basically recorded the entire auction draft from beginning to end. And he did say, if Wemby or Jokic goes down with a big time injury, we are screwed, which is true. I mean, we're not going to really be that competitive if neither one of them are playing. But as of right now, they are both playing, and they are, the absolute cream of the crop of what you can get in a 9-category fantasy basketball league. So we're very, very confident as long as those two are healthy. And of course, as long as we have guys like John Morant, Austin Reeves, and Naz Reid out there putting up supplemental stats for us too. The rest of the crew is obviously going to put up stats that we want as well. So we're feeling very good about this team, about this league, so long as our main 2 guys stay healthy. Because obviously a lot of these other guys aren't too big of a deal if they get hurt. Like if Andrew Nemhard gets hurt, if Jonas Valanciunas gets hurt, we can deal with that. That's not too big of an issue. There's streaming level guys who could pretty much put up similar levels of contribution, but it's really just those main 2 pillars of ours. If they get hurt, that'll be a big time loss for us. So that is our team. We are very excited for our first year in industry pickup, and we absolutely look forward to continuing on in this league. Hopefully we stay in the auction draft league, because I know there's 3 different leagues, so I'm not sure if they maybe rotate people to different leagues or how they ended up deciding that, because we wanted to get into industry pickup, and they just stuck us right into the auction, which of course we're okay with. We love how this ended up, especially having my secret weapon Braxton with me to take us through that auction draft. Definitely worked out very well for us. So we're excited about this, and thank you and shout out to our league mates. We're very excited to be in this league with them. Shout out to our week 1 opponent, Kingy. I'm excited to see how this one goes down. So that will do it for us today. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check out the videos of everybody that are associated in this league. There will probably be a dedicated channel that's going to do weekly coverage for all 3 of the industry pickup leagues, and you might see us either appearing as a guest on there or taking a turn as one of the hosts on there as well too. So we'll see if that does manifest going into the season here, because that's definitely something very exciting that a lot of followers in the fantasy basketball space would be very eager to see. So again, check out our website, anglefantasybasketball.wordpress.com. We will be bringing you plenty of updates on our team in this league, as well as our dynasty teams, especially with the Angle Dynasty League and the Angle Fantasy Basketball League 2, our redraft league that we did. You'll be hearing from all of us on how all of our teams are doing. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Captain, always gotta look for him. Beat so tight, I almost put a hook on it. Verse so fire, I almost put a cook on it. Had this shit jumping, looking like I put a foot on it. Got 100 on the dash when I book Sonic. Only game that I play, gotta work on it. Gotta flow so hard that it looks solid. Y'all be cynical.